downstairs went out this evening, and it is mighty hot down there. So we moved upstairs to cooler weather. Again, thank you for working with us on that. We appreciate it. We're going to move right on into the hearing this evening for public hearings. I'll read the rules of order first. The hearing shall be presided over by the mayor. After calling the hearing to order, the mayor shall request that the parcels of property which are the subject of zoning proposal be identified and read. Following such identification and reading, the development director's recommendation shall be presented. The mayor and city council shall cause the director's written recommendation to be made part of the record. Proponents of each proposed zoning decision shall then be allowed a total of 10 minutes for presentation of data, evidence, and opinion concerning the zoning decision. If all 10 minutes are not used, the proponent's remaining time may be reserved for rebuttal. Opponents of each proposed zoning decision shall then be allowed a total of 10 minutes for presentation of data, evidence, and opinion concerning each zoning decision. The presentation times may not be reduced, but may be extended by majority vote, provided they are expanded equally for proponents and opponents. Anyone wishing to speak must come up to the microphone and give their name and address to the city clerk. Do not speak unless you have the microphone and have been recognized. And with that, we'll call this public hearing to order. The microphone this evening is over here where Michelle is standing. There are also some cards that you'll need to fill out. If you haven't done so already, just make sure you fill those out. Give those to the city clerk who's sitting here on the end before you leave the room tonight. First item up on the public hearing this evening is item 3502 PC 2022-978. That is the landmark mixed-use townhomes map rezoning DCI.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. This is concerning subject property 4859 and 4899 in Peachtree Road and 1680 8th Street. Staff's recommendation for this petition, which is a bundle of requests, including a future land use amendment, development of community impact, a rezoning, as well as concurrent set of variances waivers. On all aspects of the petition, staff is recommending denial, not finding sufficient grounds to recommend approval. The property is approximately 8 acres. It's located, as mentioned, on Peachtree Road. It is the site of a former gypsum plant. It would be a redevelopment of that property. The proposal includes 4-story mixed-use building with 268 units and approximately 5,000 square feet of leasable commercial space, and another portion of the site of 24 townhomes. I would mention that the proposed units has been reduced from the original application, and the original application also has been modified to reduce the number of variances and waivers by 4 of those. And one of those is that they no longer are requesting to encroach within the stream buffer. So there was a modification. This has been posted and was distributed several weeks ago. I just wanted to highlight that there were some minor adjustments by the applicant. This is a site location where you can see it is a long and narrow set of parcels. The proposal has several components to it as indicated. I just provided the highlights of what they're proposing, including the set of variances and waivers that they include concerning things like the parking, also the request to vary from the requirement to build to have steel structures for multi-family. Also, there's a request to not have non-residential as the first floor of a multi-family project. The project has, like I was saying, several waivers that are included. I won't read every one of them. There's a total of 15 now. I did highlight that one of the changes was to move out of the stream buffer, but there still remain variances sought for parking and the configuration of the multi-family structure. There is also some requests as it relates to the access and the distance between access and drive aisles. The property is divided essentially into two components, where on the right-hand side on the screen is where there's the proposed townhome segment. It's divided with a stream between the two proposed areas of buildable area. I'm going to let the applicant walk through more detail of the proposed project and the specific features of it, just highlighting some of the elevations that were included in the application and the proposal to have have everything pushed to the street front and comply with the streetscape requirements as well as the trail component. I think this is a helpful viewpoint to understand the interface with the streetscape. Normally we wouldn't allow having the parking in front of between the building and the street as proposed here. In this case it does break up along with the street frontage, but that was one of the variances, and as I mentioned, staff is recommending denial also of the variances since they are site specific, and we are not finding grounds to recommend approval for the zoning at all. But here are illustrations of the proposed layout. They do wrap the parking deck. There's a parking deck proposed to meet the needs of this high density number of units. I'm going to skip through since, as I mentioned, I think the applicant's going to want to walk through in some of the detail of the features of the project. This is just a view of the existing site, some of the components of the site as it is today. So as concluded, because of the future land use map shows for this area that it's appropriate to have, excuse me, I think this is missing to the applicant's presentation. The proposal is contradictory to the comprehensive plan, which shows medium density residential as the appropriate use, given the location adjacent to existing single family in that area. The density and height would not be appropriate. Medium density would be up to 19 units per acre, so it would still be substantial and could be a viable use for this property instead of the high density, which is what the applicant's requesting. So with that, I conclude the staff's report.
Thank you, Michelle. Anything, John? All right, you're here to speak in favor of this item. If you'll come on up to the microphone, tell us who you are and your connection to the project.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name is Jessica Hill. I represent Landmark Properties, the applicant. My business address is 3343 Peachtree Road. As Ms. Alexander indicated, this is several requests bundled into one. We've got a future land use map amendment, a rezoning that has two parts, a DCI, and then concurrent variances and waivers, which are no stranger to Chamblee. I know that there are routinely variances and waivers approved for projects. You can see the property in aerial here is the southwest corner of the city of Chamblee. You've got 8th Street on the south portion and New Peachtree along what I'm going to call the north portion of the site. It is a very long, narrow site. It's about 1,600 feet in length, and it is about 190 feet deep at its most narrow, and it goes to about 490 feet. Here you can see the scope of the change we're asking. We're rezoning the western portion to BC, and are asking to rezone the eastern portion to VR. Properties to the east have been rezoned VR, and there is a pending application to change the land use plan 2 parcels over from here to go from mixed use to medium density residential. Interestingly, the staff is not recommending approval of that one either. They're suggesting that that parcel should remain mixed use. But for some reason on this parcel, which both of them abut single family, this one needs to remain medium density residential. So there's an inconsistency in how the staff is treating the 2 properties. Here's an architectural site plan. You've got New Peachtree at the northern portion of the property, 8th Street on the right. You can see it's about 268 multifamily units. Access is all provided from from the New Peachtree Road. You've got a stream buffer area and park, which I'll get into in a second, in the middle, and then 24 townhomes also access from New Peachtree Road. This shows the green space in the stream buffer area. It's about 1.5 acres in size. And it is proposed to be enhanced to include a trail system through it, as well as the stream buffer will be restored. There are existing impervious encroachments into the stream buffer that will be removed. There is no new encroachment into the stream buffer with anything impervious. We are not asking for any variances as indicated. Here is the site plan showing you the multifamily portion of the project. Notably, there is a 12-foot sidewalk with a 5-foot landscape strip being provided on both 8th Street and New Peachtree, which is an adjustment from the originally submitted plan and something consistent with the comprehensive plan and the recommendations for the area. Along the eastern portion of this, you can see, maybe I should get back. There is a retail component. There are 2 retail spaces totaling a little over 5,000 square feet that are fronting on New Peachtree with with a surface parking lot in the middle. I'm going to go ahead and start talking about some of the variances and waivers because I think this plan is helpful. We have asked for relief in the parking lot, the surface parking lot, to not provide 2 landscape areas along both the southern portion and the corners, as well as along the northern portion to reduce the landscape. Again, the site being very narrow, there's a limited opportunity to provide this type of accessible retail parking. I think it's important. Further, we have to have the parking between the building and the street. Again, from an accessibility perspective, that's something that is important to this project and the viability of the retail. We have asked for variances and waivers related to the access to the property. Code would require us to have access from 8th Street. We thought that might be more disruptive to the community, so we've located all of the access on New Peachtree. And it is, there are 3 curb cuts located on the multifamily piece. One is for the parking structure, and then 2 circulate through the parking lot. That is for purposes of fire access. And is essential to provide that. So that is why there are 3 curb cuts instead of 2, and why the spacing is a little bit shorter than it otherwise would be on this speed limit of road. Let's see. We have reduced the supplemental zone on 8th Street. If you look on the left side of the screen, you can see how the building jogs several times. There's existing topography and obviously the curve of the road, which challenges bringing the entire building to the street. Portions of the building are within the 8-foot maximum or 10-foot maximum supplemental zone, but there are portions where the building jogs that it does exceed the allowable. We have requested a couple of variances related to parking. One is to reduce the parking from 1.5 spaces per unit to 1.44. We think that's certainly consistent with market, and I will note that if the retail spaces are actually leased to retail, there is no parking reduction needed. This reduction has accommodated both of those spaces being leased to restaurant space, which requires 3 times the amount of parking. We have also requested to not provide the shade cover on top of the parking structure, again trying to minimize the height that's proposed. The building overall is about 50.5 feet. The parking structure is 45 feet. The current zoning on the property allows 60 feet. So we are proposing to not provide that shade cover, again, to try and minimize the height. Going. This is the townhome development. Again, a pretty simple plan. It is accessed off of New Peachtree. Drive circulates around. We have requested a few waivers related to this. One being to not provide the required streetscape around the circular drive and instead provide a streetscape through the project. And we have adjusted the park space, since you're required to have 200 square feet of space, but instead we're proposing to have common green space instead of private space. And we are also proposing to have an alternative dimension, although larger, front porch area for each of the units. And you can see that. Here are the elevations. I'm happy to walk through these in more detail, or we have our architecture team here as well. But notably on this, we are asking for 2 requests for relief. One being to allow the cementitious fiberboard on interior facing facades, so nothing that faces the street or adjacent property, but the building has a lot of turns, so we're trying to allow that material, and then also to allow the construction type, the non-combustible materials. The current zoning is IT. That allows 60 feet of height and about 350,000 square feet of development on the property today. It allows schools, shopping centers, offices, auto repair, hospitals. This property is in the new Peachtree Road character area, which recommends the zoning districts that we're asking for, both BR and BC. And neither of them are consistent with the current land use plan, MDR. MDR recommends other zoning districts. The staff has relied on the proximity of the property to single family to recommend denial, but they recommend denial of the townhome project 2 lots down for the alternative reason. Staff speaks to the residential density not being compatible with the neighbors, but this proposed density is actually less than the square footage that would be allowed under the current zoning today. The height is appropriate. Again, it's 10 feet lower than what is allowed today. And as staff noted in the staff report, there are several challenges with this site due to the length, topography. It is an existing Georgia brownfield site, so redevelopment of it does create additional challenges. We are hopeful that the mayor and council will determine that this use is appropriate in this location, given the fact that the property has been used since 1958 as a manufacturing plant, and we ask that you approve the application. I will reserve any remaining time for rebuttal.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this item? About 2 minutes left. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition?
Good afternoon, I'm Ronnie Mayer, community leader in Brookhaven, Asher Park. The whole idea here sounds pretty good, but one thing is this is the only apartment complex this is you're going to have in the neighborhood. I've got the stats of all the criminal activities in the year. This is not even all your apartments on Peachtree Industrial. Over 800 in 1 year. 800. We really don't want that in Asher Park or that section of Shambley. What we'd like to do, you got 3 of the top real estate agents sitting here in this room right here. The townhomes will work. We'd like to have $1 million flats, ownership, not apartments. It's nothing to do with who lives there or what. $1 million flats, the taxes are higher, and you have ownership. You're not going to have everybody hot rodding down the road. And we got a real problem with traffic from this is going to come into Asher Park, down Caldwell Road into Reading, and there's kids everywhere. And if you have rental units there, they're going to be blasting down the road, and there's nobody to slap each other's hand. If it's ownership, everybody's going to know who lives next door. It's not going to be all the transit people. And I want the city of Brookhaven and the city of Chamblee to go hand in hand to the ARC, the Atlanta Regional Committee, and let's get a study to open up 8th Street again with a little effort from y'all and a little effort out of Brookhaven. I know it's hard for them. It might be a lot easier for y'all. And let's get a little bit of the federal tax dollar involved, and let's open up either underpass or overpass there. One more thing I'm going to hit on is for some reason the city of Chamblee and all the little cities want to have the little shops underneath there. When you're in a neighborhood like that, if you go over to where the Walmart is, underneath there, half of those units are still empty. And across the street where the mini warehouses is, the only reason the wedding place is still there because they give them rent at a quarter of the price. That doesn't work in the work. Sometimes even though you have rules and laws, you got to change it a little bit. But I'm going to leave the rest of the time for my other brothers and sisters. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Come on up to the microphone, tell us your name and your address.
Good evening. My name is Drew Thompson. I live on Parkers Crescent. Landmark is a fantastic company. They've done a lot of great things, done a lot of student housing, but this is going to be a new venture for them. I wish them the best of luck with this, but I think they're backing up to a small residential community with an overcrowded elementary school already is probably not the location for them. I am concerned about the overcrowding of Asher Park. They've said on multiple occasions that they're targeting young singles and with bedroom apartments, but if you can't afford to buy a neighborhood, you want to be in the school system, people make sacrifices, and I do have specific concerns about that personally, having a 4 and 6-year-old in the neighborhood. I don't think that changing the land use permit or plan, 2 years after making it, also sets a good precedent for the city of Chamblee. And to echo Mr. Mayor, the potential for crime is a big concern as well. In my experience with these situations, these are generally not a long-term hold for the developer and builder. They'll be sold off, and then some international money will hold on to them, maximize profits, and they'll get rolled up again. I'm not saying that that's their intention, but that's typically what I've seen happen in these instances. So, best of luck to Landmark. I wish them all the best, but I do not think that this location is good for them to do an experiment on a market radio versus their student housing they've been doing very well for a very long time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
Mayor and Council, thank you for allowing us a chance to speak tonight. I live off Dyer Circle, right behind where this development would be built. I want to reiterate what my brothers have said so far, that this does not fit the pattern of what is in this area. When you consider Ashford Park Elementary and the rezoning and redistricting discussions, there's not room for the children that will be in these buildings. Even if it's a quarter of the occupants, it does not allow for it. It does not follow the flow of what's been developed along that corridor, and it will change the entire landscape of the community around it. I think it's a valid point about the traffic congestion and how people get in and out of that area. When you consider the street racing and the number of accidents that happen on Claremont Road on any given week, this is only going to greatly increase that and bring it into the neighborhood communities off of where Ashford Park is itself. There's a lot of golf carts and walkers and joggers and kids. They're going to fall victim to these cars and people coming in and out of this community. I do have a prepared statement as well. I don't want us to be fooled that this is a well-calculated, overused, and tired plan to say, hey, let's go with the craziest idea we could ever imagine on this site. It will get shot down, and then here we are again with a great new plan to only use 23 units an acre instead of a whopping 46 or even 19, which is the max in the land use plan. Let's not be fooled. Taylor Morrison had a successful project on this same road that just completed at approximately 10 units an acre. They were for sale units. Our issues will remain the same with apartments and parking decks and student housing style swim amenities. Safety, noise, huge spikes in traffic volume on our small streets that have loads of kids and parents walking down them daily, riding bikes, pushing strollers. It will be catastrophic one day. Mark our words, take the apartment complexes where common sense zoning, planning, and development put them, and where you are approving them now, major thoroughfares, not 8th Street and New Peach Street. We are seeking a flat-out denial, no more deferrals, no edits, no new plans, no games. We have to make it known that Shambley will not be taken up, blindsided, or paid off by deep pockets or special interests. To the applicant, go develop apartments and make piles of money. I wish you success, but do not do it at the edge of our single-family residential community. It is not a good project, and we believe strongly that nobody but the applicant and their investors want this on this site. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. What was your name, sir?
Charles Stevens.
Charles Stevens. Thank you.
Charles
Mr.
Stevens.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? About 3 minutes left.
Megan Lowry, Clairwood Terrace. live right beside, sorry, where they're asking to build. I have a 3-year-old son, and their project would scare the living daylights out of me. Because of all the crime, as mentioned, the overcrowding, we walk that street on Peachtree right now. It will be even more dangerous for us to do that. I know there will be development, but not apartment complexes, please. Think about it thoroughly. Think about all the families that are in your constituency. Do you want that type of presidency besides you overcrowding the area and making it even more difficult for pedestrian walkways, for people to travel, to people to live in this area? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Lowry. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Come on up, come on up. Got 2 minutes left.
Craig Seaman, Parkers Crescent. Quickly, there's 400 apartments that are under construction now at Shambley Manor. There's been a ton on Peachtree Industrial Boulevard. Those aren't full. The retail's not full. We really want to put more, in our residential neighborhood that aren't going to be full. We have challenging economic times coming ahead. I mean, who knows if the project gets finished? The rents stay the same. It could be, the project could change on a dime pretty quickly these days. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sam.
Hi, Mandy Seaman, 3140 Parkers Crescent. I don't know if you need that. So I'm just here, I want to ask you, City Council and Mayor, to please just deny this project, like we've been saying. Please say no to a disproportionately large apartment building on the edge of our neighborhood. We want you to follow our own 2019 plan, the comprehensive plan, keep all the buffers as required, and enforce that maximum unit per acre that we and you planned and wrote down. Let's follow it. We're worried about the traffic. We're worried about all the cars and all the pedestrians and all the other stuff. There's already a lot of it. We don't really need any more. The people who live in this complex will likely go down Caldwell to Reading to get their job in Buckhead and at Perimeter, at Cumberland, wherever they work. That's how they're going to get to 285, 400 most likely. The traffic study that they did was during virtual school time, which is not valid. So we want them to do it again during, come on down to 8th and Caldwell during like about 7:30 during the school year and do it again and see what that looks like. It's going to be a lot different. Ashford Park, we've already heard a lot is overcrowded. It's very popular. Adding an extremely dense development in an already overcrowded school district is doing a major disservice to my children, all the children, grandchildren, whoever, everybody that lives in the neighborhood. 1 or 2 bedroom apartments, as we've heard, does not equal young professionals only. It could be anybody, we don't know. Last on my list is the noise and the light nuisance. So this proposed development is uphill and several stories taller than all of our houses. So they're gonna look down on us, there are pool parties or whatever is going on. It's gonna be amplified to our house. Their parking deck lights are gonna shine in my kid's bedroom, and we don't want it. We understand development is gonna happen. We want it to happen. I am definitely not naive enough to think that an abandoned industrial facility is good for the neighborhood. But something else, please. Thank you.
So we went over by just a few seconds. We will, council, do you wish to expand time for this?
Thank you.
5 more minutes. You'll come on up. That means we got about 4 minutes and 40 seconds.
Todd Bannister. I live on Reading Road. Mayor and council, you have done a really nice job with planning and development along Peachtree Boulevard and especially in the downtown district. My family and I are there all the time, spending our money there. You do not need to move forward with this development and snub all of your Chamblee and the adjacent Brookhaven Ashford Park residents and abandon your own land use plan. This development impacts multiple municipalities. It's not just a kick in the face to the Chamblee residents in Ashford Park, but the approval of any development like this would be like Chamblee flushing the toilet on Brookhaven and letting all of the crap and negative consequences just go downstream to the Brookhaven Ashford Park residents as well. As a border development proposal, we believe, if even just a little bit, that council should also consider the strong negative impact of this development on their neighbor. Look at those elevations. They're insane. Nobody wants that in their neighborhood. It's literally smashed between Clairwood Terrace, single-family homes, the Taylor Morrison development, owner-occupied townhomes, and all of Ashford Park, single-family homes. Even the applicants and council would not want this back into their own properties. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, Timothy Ertley. We live on Caldwell, right around the corner. I again just want to echo all the concerns that multiple people have brought up about the traffic in the area. The area we live in is right down the street from the stop sign right at 8th and New Peachtree, where this will ultimately come into. Unfortunately, like we said, the traffic study that was completed was done during COVID when most people were working virtually and school was out of session. We have noticed, and I think most of my neighbors would concur with this, that since COVID is kind of, people have started going back to work, going back to school, we've seen an uptick in traffic, and ultimately this will just make it worse. We have 2 small children under 6, 2 girls that live that we have, and several neighbors that have young kids as well. And we're all just really concerned because we do see the uptick in traffic. It makes it very difficult already to really walk and use our front yards, use Caldwell Road for biking, et cetera, et cetera. And we just see this as a net negative to add on, hundreds of cars cutting through to Reading every day, to Peachtree. Thank you.
My name is Clara Escunes de Ojeda. I live in 3124 Parkridge Crescent, right behind it, adjacent to the buffer, to the stream buffer. So we'll be totally neighbors. I understand the right of anybody to develop the property the way that is more profitable for them. However, we have a person that has dedicated to actually analyze the project very well, and we have a comprehensive plan. It's about time that we actually rule ourselves by the things that we have discovered are better for the city. I think it's about time that we favor existing neighbors, existing neighborhoods, and stop favoring development. Development has to happen with the brain for favor everybody. I believe that her analysis was very appropriate, and we have an excellent staff that we probably should trust. I would recommend that we deny it. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else wishing to speak in opposition? We've got about a minute left. Seeing none, anyone wishing to speak in favor of the project? About 7 minutes.
I don't need all that.
All right, several comments, so I'm not sure exactly where to start. The takeaway I got is that renters are bad. Apparently renters cause crime, and anybody that rents an apartment is going to commit some sort of crime and impair everybody's safety to the point where you don't want them anywhere near you. That's certainly a position to take. I think it's somewhat insulting to say that this is an experiment by the applicant. Landmark is an established company, and they recently merged with a company called Haven run by Jay Williams, who started Oxford Properties, that has individuals from Novair Company, there are individuals from Post. So to say this is an experiment by Landmark is somewhat insulting. With regard to the traffic study was done for this project, and it was done again because at the design review board it was requested that it be updated because of concerns about the scope that it included. So it was updated to the satisfaction of the city engineer. Our traffic engineer is here this evening if you would like to hear from him regarding the traffic study, but it supports the fact that this project is not going to make traffic an issue in this neighborhood. The traffic study, for those that are not familiar with reading them, the traffic study has been adjusted to accommodate for the fact that the numbers were taken at a time when traffic patterns may have been altered. So again, the traffic study we believe is sufficient to support the project. There was a discussion about the fact that you won't be able to walk by this project. There's going to be a brand new streetscape that's going to be 10 feet, 12 feet wide, the 5-foot landscape zone. It'll be the nicest part of this area as far as the streetscape goes. We'll be walking past this development. There were comments about the party pool that's going to be in the project. Most multifamily developments have a pool. I think characterizing them as a party pool is, again, a gross miscategorization. Further, the pool is located immediately adjacent to the church. The applicant has had discussions with the church, who does not oppose this application, and the application was updated since the design review board to add not only an additional buffer and also additional landscaping in that area, again to help mitigate concerns that were raised by the community. We think this application is appropriate. We think that the use is appropriate given the fact that it has been a manufacturing facility since the 1950s. Everybody that's here today speaking did not live here before this manufacturing facility. They did not live next door to this property before that occurred. Okay, maybe one. Sorry, there's one. But it has been there since 1958, so it obviously is not it's not a park, it's not single-family homes. We were asking to downzone property from IT to this use. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this project? All right, seeing none, we will move to the next project. This will come up again in the agenda, and there may or may not be council discussion at that time. Next item up on the agenda is item 3501, PZ 2022-990, which is 2277 Lawson Way setback variance.
Thank you. 2277 Lawson Way is the subject property. Staff is recommending denial of their request for variances related to the rear yard setback. The request is to reduce it from 20 feet to 10 feet to build an addition that is attached by a breezeway to an existing home. The property is zoned in C2. It's about half an acre. The proposal is to construct a 7,500 square foot building as an addition to the single family residence. It is proposed to be attached by a breezeway, which our ordinance allows, and then it would be considered the same as the correct principal structure because it is attached. That is, it's treated differently than as if it were simply an accessory building. Just to explain how the rules are. The property is an unusually shaped lot. It is this large L-shaped lot, and it has access on 2 different streets. One on Lawson Way, that's where it fronts. The existing house fronts Lawson Way, and the other portion fronts along North Peachtree Road. The existing structure is just 825 square feet, and there's a small greenhouse structure also on the site. The proposed structure, as you see in what's outlined in blue, and the way it would attach to the existing single-family residential structure. And I just want to point out, because it's an unusual lot, I just want to explain a little bit the definition of the rear yard. So the way our definitions are, that existing structure is the principal structure, and the rear yard is defined as being measured from the rear wall, to the boundary line. So by that definition, that whatever is behind the existing structure is considered the rear lot. So that is the basic definition. And the rule regarding the rear setbacks is what's being applied here, and the reason for the variance. There may be some confusion about that definition, so I just wanted to spell that out. Let me back up a moment. The structure is being proposed to be 18 feet tall from grade, so it is a large structure, and it's, as I said, the request was encroaching into the side, the rear yard. Setback, staff finding no hardship or other cause there. Although it's an unusually shaped lot, that doesn't impact their options to redesign it so that it can comply with the rear yard setback. So staff's recommending denial. These are just some photos from the existing site. Thank you.
Anyone here wishing to speak in favor of this item? Come on up.
Mayor, City Council, thank you. This is my first time doing something like this, so I apologize if I don't do it right.
Start with your name and address.
My name is Ian Mendelson.
Thanks, sir.
I currently live in Midtown, but I own a house on Admiral Drive, 3668 Admiral Drive. It's currently being rented, but I'm going to try and move back there because of this project. My parents are moving to town from Charlotte. They're going to be relocating to be closer to me and my kids. So I'm going to move to Admiral, and my parents are going to live in Lawson. My dad has a lot of tools and a motor home and a bunch of other stuff that he's collected over the years. And he wants to move here from Charlotte, so this is the main reason why I'm doing this. So the variance request is to reduce the rear setback from 20 feet to 10 feet, although I respectfully disagree with the city's interpretation of what the rear lot line is. They're stating that the rear lot line is this bottom line here. I don't know if the laser pointing will work. It won't. So the rear lot line, this is a through lot. This is not a typical lot. This has been this way. This has been unimproved. This other portion facing North Peachtree is, as far as we can tell, has never had a building on it. It has been in this exact configuration with the barbed wire fence since the late 70s, early 80s. It has a one-story, 125 square foot home on it. A through lot is a lot that a house that a lot that abuts two streets. It doesn't have to be front and back, but it can be also on the side. And by definition, a front yard, a through lot has two front yards essentially, one on each street. As such, there is no rear lot line for this, so there's no 20-foot rear lot line setback. A rear lot line has to be between side lot lines. So this is a standard rectangular lot line, a through lot, just to make it a little easier to understand. Two side lot lines and two front yard lot lines. And with this house, they're stating that this big portion on the back is a rear lot line. I tried to simplify it, but I'm not a graphics guy, but it's not exactly the same, but it's close enough. That triangle on the right just kind of shows you where it actually goes. Okay, they're trying to say that there's a front setback 20 feet, and then there's a rear setback 20 feet. And you can't really have a front setback and a rear setback right next to each other. It just doesn't work that way. So I think their interpretation of it is incorrect. It's a through lot, and as a through lot, I have two side setbacks and two front yards. So I really should not need this variance, but they stated that I did because of their interpretation. What I'm requesting is a 10-foot setback. If indeed I do need a variance, I'm recommending that it be 10 feet. I'm proposing a big workshop here. Yes, it's big, but it all falls within the floor area ratio. In fact, I could build this right now with the 20-foot setback, but it would be a lot closer to the other lot line. Well, I'll go to that in a minute. It would be, this is what I could build right now if I have to abide by the 20-foot setback. It just won't be centered. It won't look as good. And on top of that, this is the proposed lot line back on the proposed building on the survey. There's trees. There's a wall. There's barbed wire fence. All that stuff I'd have to remove, and most likely have to build so close to the trees that I'd have to have the trees removed if I move it over. So the trees here, that wall, and the fence would all have to come out. And on top of that, if I have to build closer to that, without the variance, the gate, which is already there, which has an entrance from North Peachtree, it wouldn't be centered on the building. It would just look weird. It would just look offset. I'm trying to make it as aesthetically pleasing as humanly possible. And there's another portion that I wanted to go over real fast, which is, go back to the original survey here. So this is obviously two old lots. that were combined at one point in time. The lot that faces North Beach Street, the reason why you never had a building on it that we could ever tell is, and according to DeKalb County, you can't put anything on that piece of land. The sewer is over 200 feet away, so I can't connect to a sewer. And as per the state of Georgia law, it requires at least 25,500 square feet of continuous areas, or 0.6 acres, to put in a septic field. So you can't put in septic, you can't put in sewer. So it's just going to sit there unused unless I can build onto the back of the house. And the reason why it's offset is because I already have the existing septic tank and field lines. They were grandfathered in, they were replaced when we rehabbed the house. DeKalb County approved its replacement. They would not have, if nothing was there, they would not have approved putting in a septic system because it was there. They allowed us to do this. So unless I build that way, there's absolutely nothing that can be done with that land as it sits there. And what I'm looking to put in is large, but it's reasonable. It all falls below the floor area ratio that I'm allowed to build under the NC2. And I'd like to save the rest of my time for any rebuttal in a minute.
Anybody else here wishing to speak in favor of this item? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Nothing to rebut. Did you wish to say something else? You still have about 4 minutes left.
I have a letter of support from the neighbor that I surround on two sides. Alan Catholic, he's provided a letter of support for the variance as well. For the neighbor on the other side, he said he would provide a letter of support. He actually said he would be here, right? No? Going once? No? Okay. He said he would be here to give me some support. So, and let me just make sure there's nothing else on this here. Wait, there is one thing. What's it going to look like? I just had to go find some mock-up. It's not going to have a metal building. It's not going to have metal cladding. It's going to have hardy plank siding on the side. It's just going to have a covered porch on that one side there with some roll-up doors. It's not going to look anything like that. That's the only thing I can find online that would allow me to put a building together so I could show what it would sort of kind of look like. The guy who wanted to put the actual drawings together wanted to charge me a fortune. I said, well, I don't know what this is actually going to look like, so, or what you guys are going to say here today. So, and this is the part that would face the house on Lawson, and that will be connected by the breezeway. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Again, this item will come up again later in the agenda, so there may be questions. Next item up on the agenda is 3499 PC 2022-1009 Chamblee Plaza sign variance. Michelle?
Thank you. This is the subject property is located at 5544 Peachtree Boulevard. Staff for this application found no grounds to recommend approval. The request is to allow an electronic changeable copy sign to be installed on an existing non-conforming pole sign. It's also requesting a variance to change the display times. The code requires display times to change only every 30 seconds, and they're requesting to reduce that down to 6 seconds. The property is village commercial. You know the area, Chamblee Plaza. It's about 17, almost 18 acres. The sign is located here. It's the existing pole sign. So this is a non-conforming sign. It's allowed to exist, even though it is not conforming to their code, but it cannot have the electronic changeable copy as they proposed. What you see on the bottom, on the right-hand picture, a little white square. If you can read it, it's the dimensions of 14 feet by 7 feet to change, to have electronic changeable in that section there, highlighted on that right side. I'm just comparing it to the existing sign that's there. There's just additional images of it. Just have it so that you can see it in perspective. This is actually the applicant's portion of their, so I apologize, of their presentation to make their case. That concludes staff report. There is no hardship. There is no other grounds that meet the criteria for recommending approval. Therefore, staff recommends denial.
Thank you, Michelle. Anyone here wishing to speak in favor of this item? Come on up and tell us your name and address, please.
Dentrigio, Trinity Development, 1915 Airport Road, Suite 2D, Chamblee, Georgia. I am, I guess, the applicant. Nice to see everybody. So, yes, it is a non-conforming sign. It's a 2-foot tall by 14 feet, is that correct? 2 by 14. What we're proposing is a small panel, which, if we go to slide number 3, yes, if you don't mind. Thanks. You'll see it says electronic message board. That's 2 feet by 2 feet 7 inches by 14.7. It's a small panel. It will be changeable. It will display logos only. So we've got approximately 24 or 5 tenants at Chamblee Plaza. We're getting very close to getting Publix open. And there's a number of tenants that have come to us for this request and say, hey, is there anything you can do to give us some visibility? We only have, as you can see, 8 signs available. With this one, it would allow the other 16 to have availability on the sign. So it would change. We're not proposing any flashing Vegas style signage. It would just be for their logos. So if you can imagine some of the tenants that are there currently in the restaurants, their logos would come up. We're proposing that it would be every 6 seconds, so it would just evolve quickly. It's basically the look and feel is what you see currently. And it will change solid to solid logos. That's what's being proposed. And we don't know any other way to do it but through technology, like everything else. So that's what we're proposing. And that's our ask. So basically asking just to approve the that small area for electronic board. So I'll leave some time for everybody else and available questions. Thanks for your time.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this item? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Very good. Seeing none. Did you have anything else you want to say, Vince? Are you good? Are you good?
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
All right. With that, we'll close out the public hearing portion, and I'll call to order the work session. First item up on the agenda this evening, announcements and presentations. The Shambley Parks Recreation 2022 Summer Campus has been moved to Tuesday. Next item up will be under City Clerk, approval of minutes, public hearing work session, May the 12th. Anything from council? City Council regular meeting, May the 17th. Anything from council? Item number 2, agenda and meeting management software.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Chamblee City Clerk. Tonight I would like to request authorization for the mayor to sign an agreement with PrimeGov for agenda and meeting management software. This would replace our current software, MinuteTrack, which has now become a legacy system and no longer receives adequate support. 3 software systems were reviewed: eScribe, iCompass, and PrimeGov. All 3 software systems were compatible and would provide the basic needs of the city. However, PrimeGov demonstrated the most responsive proposal. Staff recommends procuring PrimeGov for the management of city's agenda and meeting management software. PrimeGov is 100% cloud-based and can be used from any location without VPN setup. It has the capacity to manage, track, and automate the entire agenda process. During meetings, it allows for roll calls, motions, votes, minutes, and notes. PrimeGov also is the only agenda software that integrates with our current video streaming vendor, Swagger, as well as integration with Laserfish, Office 365, and our new website platform, Revise. An agreement with PrimeGov would cost $27,000 the first year, and that includes the implementation. This service agreement includes modules such as agenda meeting management, committee board management, community engagement, member voting, software integration, and migration of our legacy data. If council approves and decides to move forward, implementation would take approximately 6 to 7 months. Any questions?
Questions from council?
No questions from me.
Thank you, Madam
Thank
City
you.
Clerk.
Very good, thank you.
Under our city manager, I believe we need a motion to suspend the rules to add an item to the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to suspend the rules to add an item to the agenda. All in favor?
What is that item?
All in favor? Thank you. We need to suspend the rules to add the item GDOT supplemental agreement. Somebody will make that motion for me.
So moved. Motion to add the GDOT supplemental agreement.
Have a motion and a second to add the GDOT supplemental agreement. All in favor? Very good. First item up on the city manager's agenda is a letter of support for the Latino Community Fund Food Initiative.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an initiative that was brought to us by the Latino Community Fund Foundation. They have put together a program that would partner with We Love You High to provide, and other nonprofits to provide free food and other, potentially other supplies throughout the community. They are looking for a location to do this, and the structure is that this will be a pilot program, and they're currently going after some federal funds to do this. So they are asking for a letter of support from us, from the city, for this program. I will say that if they receive federal funds, they would then come back to us and ask for some funding. They provided a breakout of how that would work. The city would not operate. The city would simply provide funding so that the nonprofits could provide this. And obviously that would be something that would be eligible through our nonprofit program.
Questions from council? Very good, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Item number 2, Georgia Initiative for Community Housing Resolution.
Thank you, Mayor. As some of you may remember, we did apply for this program a couple of years ago, and we were not successful. This is a statewide program that provides assistance to local governments in determining and working through affordable housing options within the community. It is a 3-year program, and it does operate out of the University of Georgia, as well as GMA and I believe the Department of Community Affairs. We are asking to reapply again. Since that time, the city has taken action to make ourselves a stronger applicant, such as completing the housing study, which we will have that presentation next month. And so we are asking essentially for permission to apply again for this program.
Very good. Any questions from council? Item number 3, the 2022 millage rate.
Thank you, Mayor. This is really a placeholder. We will be having a public hearing on Tuesday night, and at that point we will be discussing and voting on the millage rate. Staff has recommended maintaining the millage rate at the current level, but there will be a public hearing on that on Tuesday night.
Item number 4, the GDOT supplemental agreement.
Thank you, Mayor. The rail trail extension, which was approved, I believe it was last month, for sections or segments 7 through 12. We have worked out an agreement with the contractor that was selected, but it is over slightly what we had originally budgeted. Because of that, we did reach out to the Atlanta Regional Commission and received supplemental funds for that program of about $340,000, which the city would then need to pay $68,000 as a match. This is not the full amount that we would need, but there are multiple times throughout this process that we can ask for more funding, and we feel that it's still a great project to move forward with with pricing and what's happening in the world right now, we still think this is a good program. And the match for the city is still bringing in a lot of federal funds. This one is the project that is completely funded through construction. So we are asking for our recommendation is for council to authorize the mayor to sign a supplemental agreement with GI on this project.
Questions from council?
I just want to make a comment about the millage rate. We had 2 hearings this week, and not one person showed up, and I have not received one email about that. So if anybody has any concerns or comments about the millage rate, please come out to the next hearing.
Thank you, John.
And so, I just want to clarify, the additional amount is
$340,000 is the additional funding that we've received.
$68,000 of which we will pay.
Of which, yes.
Yeah.
$68,000 is what the city, the funding pool was increased $340,000. The city will need to provide $68,000 of that.
Okay.
Thank you, John. All right, we will move back into the development department portion of the agenda. First item up is the landmark mixed-use townhomes DCI, and I will open this up to council if anyone has any questions. Questions? Anything, sir? Anything, Mr. B? Five, that's all right, sir.
Nothing tonight, nothing right now.
Very good. No questions from council on that item. Next up is the Lawson Way setback variance. Any questions from council?
I have some questions.
Good, sir. You way over there, you can take one.
No.
Is it for staff or for the applicant?
The first one is for staff. In the original report, there was questions about the original planning of the property versus titling of it. I've never, going through all of it, I haven't seen anything that clarifies, is this really one piece of paper according to one piece of property according to DeKalb County, or 2? It seems to go back and forth in the discussion in here, in the documents.
Right, so I understood that there was an underlying question about it because of the original plat, but what GIS and DeKalb tax assessor shows is what I would honor, because that is what the current record is. So if an applicant would want to appeal to that and have recourse to that original plat, my understanding is DeKalb would honor that and have an official process for dividing it back into 2. Okay. But that's an underlying, it's also a land use, a legal question, but for permitting purposes, staff, Michelle, development director, would honor and respect what DeKalb has shown as the legally tax ID for someone who wants to develop. Does it meet our rules then based on what the DeKalb tax assessor shows as the boundary? So the question was raised because of the research that if an applicant wanted to do the underlying plat and respect that, that was a question to determine. But if the applicant is recognizing and sticking with what is recognized with DeKalb, that is satisfying to staff.
Okay, thank you.
Right, is that fine with the applicant?
As the through lot, as the taxing account, correct?
Okay.
Yeah.
Now for the applicant. First question, why did you not convert the property to public sewer versus rebuilding the septic tank?
Because it was too far away. It's over 200 feet away. Well, actually, the portion behind Lawson is 2.5 houses. I have to go down the hill and then 2.5 houses up to get to the closest manhole. Actually, got a picture of it
right. No, there's a number of properties that are having to do that in the city right now to be put on the city sewer. It's being done quite frequently.
DeKalb County approved. It met the DeKalb County requirements, and that's why they approved it as a septic tank, because the sewer was too far away for them to require people attached to it.
Require, yes. Okay. I had one other question and now lost it. Sorry, just a comment. Sorry, I think is that a comment for staff. We actually still allow breezeways as attachment. I asked because DeKalb County removed that
I know because I used it many years ago and they realized what they had and they took it away. I'm kind of surprised that's still in there that way. Interesting. Okay, that's all I have for right now. Thank you.
Any other questions from council?
I got a question. I can figure out how to work this.
Slide the switch up. There you go.
So in the packet, you had a picture of the metal building as you said you couldn't get a example of your actual building done. But I would be interested in seeing a building that's constructed in a similar technique, manner, and method that you maybe, it's not your actual drawing or actual plan, but you're going to build something that looks like whatever. That's what I would like to see.
You know, it's going to be, the best thing to do is something of the same size and scale. It's going to have hardy plank just like the regular house.
Just want to see something, that whatever you think is going to be the best example, just show me what it's going to look like. I know it's not going to be the same rendering or whatever. You've already made that clear, and I understand the difficulty of getting that done. Sure. But I would like to see an example to be half the size, a third the size, 2 stories, I don't care, but I want to have something that's going to say this is what it's going to look like as far as the method is concerned.
Okay. John, you actually reminded me. So, also for staff, if this were to be built as a commercial use space, what would the finishing requirements be on the building? We're not going to allow us a metal sided building to be put up at this point. So, what would that have to look like?
It would be restricted to the architectural standards of brickstone, stucco. Those does not allow metal buildings. I think metal is allowed as an accent material, as long as it doesn't,
It isn't the majority material.
Right, correct.
Okay, but does it still have to have finishes, trim, etc.? It's not just be a plain box.
Right, if it were a commercial. However, this is a residential structure, so it would be treated as a residential. It would have to meet the residential exterior materials.
If I read correctly, this zoning area can also be used for commercial purposes. So if down the road the property was sold, and the new owner wanted to do something with it.
Yes, sir.
We could potentially have a non-conforming building for a commercial purpose.
But not likely. The restrictions are so close, both for architectural, whether it's residential. We don't allow metal in either categories, for example.
No, it was just as far as the plate, as far as the variation of finish of the side building.
Sure, something like fenestration, for example, that would be probably non-compliant structure if they chose to make it commercial.
Okay, thank you.
So I do have a couple of questions, and these are for the applicant. You state that your father?
Parents, yes.
Okay. Has RVs and vehicles and tools. Sorry, I'm not speaking.
Sliding switch.
Okay. So is he planning on working on these vehicles in there?
Working on them?
Yeah.
No. It's just like parking the RV inside.
It's all
he's
storage.
80. I'm sorry, he's 76 years old. He's not working on anything. It's just stuff he's accumulated through his life. And it's the RV when he goes and travels and sees my brother and sister. They're going to park that inside where they're currently parking versus parking it outside.
Because you said he has a lot of tools and things. So essentially it's for storage?
He's a hobbyist. He did a little woodworking, a little this, a little that over the years, and he's accumulated the tools and whatnot. And he's moving down here to be next to us and his grandkids, and he wants to still have his workshop.
Okay. And again, well, I would like to see some type of a rendering of what this building would look like as well. I can't tell from what you've shown us. I mean, is there going to be a roll-up garage door on it, and where would that be? Would that be facing North Peachtree? And you said something about fence and barbed wire fence and block and wall.
That's all existing. That's been there for 40, 50 plus years.
Right, and so you wouldn't be taking that down?
If I'm required to take it down, I have no need for a barbed wire fence. But the actual fencing itself is just a chain link fence.
Okay, all right.
And no problem removing the barbed wire portion.
Yeah. Okay. That's it.
Very good, thank you. BZ 2022-991 3654 Keswick Drive. This was a holdover from last council meeting. Is there any further discussion on that item? Good. And PZ 2022-1009 Shambley Plaza side variance. Any further discussion from the council on this item?
Yep, we're working on it. So my question is for the applicant, Mr. Riccio. So I know we talked about this project a little bit prior to the meeting, and you know, when I first heard about it, when I first saw it, I thought, you know, I was very nervous about it. Didn't want to see, you know, animations and fireworks and leprechauns running across the screen or anything like that. And it's something, you know, I think that's the visual, at least that's the visual I had when I heard about this. Oh no, not that. What is it? Well, you know. Anyway, so I'm glad that that you know, trying to keep it. You're just trying to keep the look the same, but just use technology to try to give you more options for your tenants, because we also want the tenants in Chamblee Plaza to be successful. And you know, in today's climate, they need every advantage they have. And front store signage out front's helpful, and we like our trees that are in front of Chamblee Plaza, so which block a lot of views of some of the buildings. So we don't want those cut down, so we can see the placards on the building. So kind of have to think about that. What I guess my question for either Michelle or John Walker is there, I mean, he's claimed that he wants to regulate this with logos and stuff. Is there anything stopping him from turning it into leprechauns and fireworks and stuff like that? You know, an animation, or is there something in the code to stop that? Sorry to put you on the spot. It's something you can tell me later if you want.
Well, I would say it would be difficult. I mean, it depends how important it is for you to have code enforcement watching it every day. So we could have them provide us what the changeable copy is going to be, and we can approve it or disapprove it, or require that they submit it every time they change it, so the leprechauns don't have things exploding out of them as they run across the screen. But but they can propose. So from a regulatory aspect, and how do you enforce it, they can propose, and we could approve something that we find acceptable and aesthetically appropriate. And avoid cartoons, if you will, like put some limiting language, no cartoons, no explosions, but that is difficult to, you know, it's an enforcement question.
I understand.
You have to be looking at it every day, and whoever's the programmer can change it at any time. So it's tough.
I understand. Now, is that something that would be better for the applicant to say, you know, things that his be limited to, or is that something that better in the language that we come up with a motion?
So I think if you want it are considering approval and want it regulated and limited, we'd want to have it in the motion, and we'll buy some time. Staff can look further how others might be regulating it where it exists.
Okay. Thank you. That's it. That's for me. Anybody else?
Questions? All right, item under Police Department North Metro SWAT Team. Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Committee for authorizing the use of the mayor to sign an MOU authorizing the members of the Chamblee Police Department during the North Metro SWAT Team. It's a team that's been established since 2009. Basically, units that is comprised of Sandy Spring, Dunwoody, Johns Creek, and Brookhaven. It offers an opportunity for us to be able to respond to critical and emergency situations a little bit faster. Some of our team members or some of our members of our police department has already went through a very tryout process, and 3 of them have been selected. So we are asking for council and mayor to approve the signing of the MOU.
Any questions from council?
So, I have some questions. So these 3 officers that have gone through and passed the rigorous SWAT tryout, does that mean that they are not going to be deployed as police officers, or is this a dual assignment for them?
Yes, it will be a dual collateral assignment. They will be assigned, still here as Shambley officers, will be ride the beat, will be performing the duties, their normal duties upon a SWAT call out. If they are actively available, we try to make them available to respond, just as we would want other team members to respond to a critical situation that we would have in Chamblee.
And does this mean that they will get a raise?
Actually, they will be compensated more or less on an overtime basis when they respond.
I mean, because they deserve a raise if they're doing that dangerous job. So that's all I have.
Any other questions?
So this is a multi-jurisdictional group, I guess. And where do they decided where they're going to be meeting, or where they're dispatching, or how?
So basically, the entire unit trains an additional 16 hours a month together, which they begin to, with that coalition of training together, makes them more proficient together. So they're not housed in any particular agency. All the agencies, they have a separate communication mechanism. So when they're called out, they respond to a central briefing location, at which time they receive a briefing on the situation and they deploy based on the training that they have to that situation. In addition to that, there is also a hostage negotiator, a crisis negotiator, a logistics team that's also included technical medics that's housed with that team as well, that rolls out upon the call outs.
So we're getting tanks and stuff? No answer required.
Any other questions? Chief, you have an item for communication officers to POAB dues payment program.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Council. Asking for approval for the police department the city to fund the monthly dues for Governor Kemp assigned into Law House Bill 84 that recently was signed, and commission officers to be funded, with communication officers to be funded in the POAB. The city has already, since 2016, been funding the dues for the sworn officers. Now the communication officers have also been included in that for the benefits of retirement benefits, other death benefits as well in the POAB.
Questions from council? Thank you, Chief.
Thank you very much.
Under Parks and Recreation, we have the Chamblee Trail Master Plan.
Good evening. At the March Council Retreat, you asked that staff look into hiring a firm to master plan the trail system in Chamblee. And tonight we are here to ask for your approval for the mayor to sign a professional services agreement with the PATH Foundation for the development of the trail master plan, which will verify the feasibility of all proposed trails and identify additional trail opportunities within city limits. In addition to that, the service agreement with PATH will include some data collection and analysis, a steering committee formation, as well as community engagement meetings, trail system design standards and guidelines, which includes the trail naming, logo development, amenity signage and construction standards, as well as cost estimates, a timeline, and the final plans.
So is this going to include Peachtree Creek Greenway Trail?
I'm not sure that it will include all of that, but it will get us to where those meet at that point.
Okay.
So within the city limits.
Right.
So.
Oh, well, never mind. It will.
Oh, okay.
So does PATH gonna assist in fundraising or any of that stuff, or are they just gonna be another advocacy group?
They can assist in the fundraising for that, and we did speak with several other cities who've used PATH in the last 2 to 3 years, and they all said that because the name PATH, they were able to get more funding at the state level as well as through the Atlanta Regional Commission.
Very good. That's what we need. We need a partner.
A partner, yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. All right, under second reads, we'll have a second read on Tuesday for Chamblee election districts. And the last item up this evening, we have citizen comment. Anybody wishing to speak, you'll have 3 minutes. Come on up to the microphone, tell us your name and address and what's on your mind. Anybody? John, do we have an executive session this evening?
We do not.